So this is how I imagine life should be in my imaginary world. On Tuesday, my PA phoned down to Italy to get the boys to prepare my Ferrari 212 so I can do a bit of touring around over the weekend. So I've just landed Bologna Airport and here I am in the most Italian workshop in the world. It even has an old dog and a chicken. Let's go and have a look at the car because we're going to go and drive a 212 in the hills. Come and look at this. Is this not the most perfect, charismatic Italian workshop? It is just wonderful. I wish I could get this sense of smell and perfection and love that's going on with these cars. But here it is, the 212. Very few cars are genuinely beautiful, but this is. It has a simplicity to it. So let's go and understand it. And that means going and driving it in the hills. I'd be lying if I said that the 212 was a peach around town. She requires a bit of work, but rewarding all the same. But you need to get to an open road, and I found one. This is the Ferrari 212 Barchetta dream. Open roads, a 2.5 litre, 160 horsepower V12 yowling away in front of me. I mean, the grin doesn't lie, people. This is right up there. What have I got underneath me? Well, I've got a pretty basic chassis. If you look underneath, it's just 2 bits of metal running longitudinally. That lovely V12 nestled up front. Got about 160 horsepower, and I haven't got much grip, which is just perfect. It feels lively. It's a delicious engine, just making a lovely noise from about 3.5 to 5,000 RPM. Surprisingly quick. What this must have felt like in 1951 or 52, crikey, must have felt Veyron quick.
It's very hard to convey how tactile this car is. The thin, knobbled steering wheel fighting your hands, the small Bakelite topped shifter slotting between gears. It's just one great big sensory smack in the chops. At 50 miles an hour, the 212 feels more alive and asks more of its driver than a 458 at twice that speed. And just look at the clock faces and, well, the whole cabin. Sparse design never looked better.
Wow. No, it's a really exciting driving device. At the front, we've effectively got a double wishbone. However, there's a transverse leaf spring that's the bottom side of that double wishbone. So we've got a very interesting road behaviour. It allows you a certain amount of movement, but once you get beyond a certain point, you've got to be a little bit careful, I think, and just make sure that you don't make it jump around too far. But can you imagine getting your entry into the Mille Miglia and then cruising round for 3 or 4 days? I say cruising, I mean give it some tap, because the noise, well, the noise. Let's just have a few seconds of the noise. If ever you needed a car to demonstrate how overly loud and synthesized modern sports car engines have become, this is the car. This really is the car. I will now demonstrate to you a real engine noise. Okay, second gear. Here she goes. That is from the gods. Now, I can tell you what it's like to drive this wonderful car, but we need to know a little bit more about the history of it and the significance of this particular model. VRM auction. Let's go back to base and talk to the ever knowledgeable and smiling Max Gerardo about this particular Barchetta. So I need to understand a little more about this remarkable little car, and I'm here with Max from RM, who's looking after the sale of it, and I'm staggered by its beauty and some of its simplicity. But start from the beginning. When was it made?
So it was built in 1952, obviously at Ferrari, and then Ferrari sent the chassis to Touring to be clothed, to be dressed, and this is what it came out. It's a Touring Barchetta, one of the prettiest Ferraris that were ever made.
It is stunning. So what were the options? You could have had Touring do a body.
You could have Vignale do a body, you could have Pininfarina do a body, and if you're a very wealthy man, you could actually send it within reason wherever you like. It was always sent within Italy, but there was lots of bodybuilders in Italy. But Touring really was the one to have. This is the best looking one that they made.
And there's a story behind the Barchetta tag, isn't there? And a particular line down the side of the car.
Absolutely. Barchetta is actually a bit of a nickname that it got, being so small and pretty. But why they call it as Barchetta is because there's a coach line down the side. And if you were to put this car in the water, that's where the water would lie. So it's a small little boat. It's a piccola barchetta.
It is absolutely stunning. Now, you made an analogy earlier when we were talking about what type of owner would have bought the car, and you said it's a bit like going out now and buying an LMP2 car, basically.
Exactly
so
right.
Colossally expensive in period, very high quality, a racing car, but of course you could drive it on the road.
Exactly right. That's what's nice about it. It's a racing car that would also be driven on the road. A factory driver would use this car and go and win races, and you, as a very wealthy privateer, could go and buy the same car and go and race as well.
So the new owner takes delivery, and what does he go and do with it straight away?
Well, this particular car, first thing he did is he went racing. A couple of small sort of races in Italy, and then Targa Florio. Big race out, and very, very successfully. 10th overall, and top 5 in class, so pretty impressive for a privateer outing.
So that must have been one of the highest privateer finishes for the Targa that year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, just to add on to that, the next year, some more small races. Next year, he's back at the Targa Florio again with this car.
And the sort of list of factory correspondence and interactions with this car is fascinating at the beginning of its life, isn't it? Because quite clearly he's into the performance, and they're upgrading and developing this car quite fast, this chassis and this powertrain. So it goes back and has more go faster bits fitted, doesn't it?
Exactly. That's a nice thing. It always comes back to the factory, and they keep all the records of all the little bits that we're doing. A stronger rear axle and tweaks to the engine and carburation, just to get, as you say, more power and go faster.
And then Mille Miglia, obviously, these cars, the look, the shape, the numbers we have here, they're synonymous with that event. This car did compete in that event, didn't it?
Exactly right. Then in '56, it went and took part in the Mille Miglia, which is the most grueling race. I mean, can you imagine doing 1,000 miles in the 50s in this car in the Mille Miglia? I mean, that's been quite something.
Can we admit at this point that we did get a bit lost with the sat-nav earlier and ended up on a completely sort of not finished road, Max and I, and it did feel very Mille Miglia, didn't it? It did. And I have to say, the transverse leaf spring in the car felt very natural doing it. It wasn't like we were thinking it's a really precious classic you can't use. It just sort of soaked up a couple of bumps and it just carried on, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It was quite picturesque as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And there's a lovely story behind these numbers. Explain that as well.
Yeah, so that's great. So it was a very simple system to put start numbers on the cars at the time. All they would do is write down the time you were starting. So this car started at 5:43 in the morning. Simple, easy, and you know what time was started, and they could calculate when they arrived how long did it take to do the 1,000 miles.
That is simple and clever. So what do you do? So you buy this car. It has a reserve of 5 to 7 million euros, let's say.
That's correct, yeah.
I love quoting numbers like that are totally unaffordable in my life. It's a very rare, very special motor vehicle. It looks like it'll fetch a good price. What do you go and do with it?
Well, that's the best bit. You go and do everything you want with it. This car is hugely eligible to events all over the world. You can go and do the Mille Miglia. I mean, they would love to have a car that did the Mille Miglia period back on that event again. You could go do the Targa Florio. You can go and do, race it at Silverstone if you want. But also, it's so pretty, it's so beautiful. You can go do a concours. You can go to Pebble Beach. It's a ticket to just about any important event around the world.
and it is beautifully patinated in certain areas. There's some lovely life in the paintwork. There are original touches. You can see there's glass that's been there a long time. And you mentioned earlier that it's a very well documented history, and it hasn't had many stacks, has it? It's not had much action at all.
That's what's really special about this car, is that it's an original body, original engine. We know where it's been every day of its life. You know, a lot of these cars were raced within an inch of their lives and stacked and broken up and damaged and rebodied. Not this one. This is why it's so special. It's exactly as it was back in the 50s.
It is quite beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed the video as much as I've enjoyed driving it. Yeah, bring on the sale.